No Marvel rants tonight, but tonight we're going to be talking about right now the latest film from Dario Argento. In a non-spoilery way, I'm a huge Dario Argento fan. I don't think he's made an exceptional movie in a long time, since Opera was his last great movie, but he's done some good ones since then, but his last movie was Dracula 3D, and it was like 10 years ago. So now he's got a new movie out. It's available to stream on Shudder right now, called Dark Glasses. Let's get into it. Dark Glasses, a.k.a. Oculi Neri, is un film di Dario Argento, starring Elena Pastorelli and Asia Argento. This is the first Dario Argento movie in 10 years. And I'll be honest, his last couple decades of movie making wasn't the most solid, but I was rather excited for this movie, and it did not let me down. So it's about this woman, and she is a sex worker, a prostitute, and it starts out with this really interesting scene about the eclipse or whatever, and she looks up at the eclipse, but she hurts her eyes, but it kind of foreshadows what's to come. But so this woman, she's a prostitute, and it's dealing with her life at first. Meanwhile, there's a dude out there who drives this van. It was a black van at first, then it becomes this white van, and he is killing sex workers, okay? And this is a common trope you see in Italian gialli. And this is kind of like a giallo film, but it's not a giallo film. So don't think it's going to be like Deep Red or Bird with Crystal Plumage or anything like that. But so she winds up getting chased down by this dude in a car in this rather intense scene, in my opinion. And she winds up in a wreck, and the wreck kills two people who are the parents of this young Chinese kid. And he winds up living, and she lives, but she now is blind. So it impairs her vision, and now she's blind. So the eclipse didn't blind her, but this did. So that was an interesting little bit. I don't know what that was all about. But so it's about this woman. She's coming to terms with the fact that she's blind. She's assigned this teacher who's teaching her how to live life as a blind woman. And her teacher is played by Asia Argento. I really like her in this role. She eventually becomes kind of like a friend to this woman. And they have their ups and their downs, and it's slight. Like most Argento, there's no Argento movie out there that is done script first, okay? So the story is very thin. This woman, a prostitute, is blinded by this dude in a car accident, and now she's being hunted down by this dude while she's trying to come to terms with being a blind woman and how she deals with that. So this killer is still after her throughout the movie, and you have this fear. So this young Chinese kid, Chen, who is the other survivor of this wreck, winds up running away from the orphanage and living with her for a while, and they kind of develop this bond. And she also gets a seeing eye dog, and they develop a bond there. But long story short, this killer is hunting them down, and the entire second half of this movie is just a big chase sequence. I really liked this movie. I thought that the performances were decent enough. I thought Asia was probably the best, but what's her name, Pastorelli or whatever, as the lead, as Diana, she did enough for me for this movie. I appreciate that this is probably one of the most character-focused Argento films that we've ever gotten. Argento doesn't care about plot. He doesn't care about narrative. He doesn't care about script. He cares about style and theme. That's what he cares about. But in this one, he actually lays the groundwork for some great character work. But if you're looking for the gore, for the blood and guts, you're going to get a little bit of that. It's not as extreme as some of Argento's other works, including more of his recent fare, but it still works for me. Argento is 82 years old. He's already got his next film in the works. I thought they killed it on this movie. I wasn't expecting much. Like I said, Argento all of his 70s movies are pretty solid. I think all of his masterpieces are in the 70s. Deep Red, Bird with Crystal Plumage, and Suspiria. All three movies we've covered here on PCP Movie Night. And then after Opera, he goes into his 90s, early aughts phase, and it's just not as good. Stendhal Syndrome is pretty solid. That's when he starts working with his daughter, Asia Argento, who's in this film. The Card Player's good. I like Trauma, actually, with his other daughter, or Sleepless with his other daughter. I like Trauma as well. So there are movies of this period that I like, but for the most part, it's not been the Argento that we know and love. That being said, watching this movie gave me faith in Argento again. His camera work is still there. There are camera shots, camera movements in this movie that blow me away. The story is paper thin. It's a very simple story, not even told in a complex way. But it works for me because it's character-based, which is the first time I can ever think of Argento doing something character-based. So I got to give him props for that. And I got to give him props for the style. My favorite performance might be, I don't know, I actually like the kid in this movie, the Chinese kid. I really like him. I actually like Diana in this movie. I love Asia in this movie. Once again, as Scarpad likes to point out, the police are completely inept in this movie. Is that a fault to an Argento film, or is it just an expectation now? You know what I'm saying? I love the camera work. I love the style of it. And the music's one of the best parts of this movie. Now, apparently, Daft Punk was supposed to do the music for this movie. Then they broke up. So they brought in this other guy. I can't even remember his name. But he kills it. The music in this movie is a driving force that even though the story is paper thin and kind of runs in circles for just a bit and gets silly for a moment until it comes back. Now, y'all, I'm a big fan of Italian horror, so I'm used to that shit. I'm also a big fan of American horror. I'm a big fan of horror films, so I'm used to that shit. But that being said, the music is a driving force that permeates this entire film with an atmosphere and an energy. It's like, it's got more of a kind of vibe, but it still feels very creepy. And Argento is really involved in the music in his films, and the music is top-notch in this film. Some of the best music in a horror film I've seen in a long time. Like, instantaneously, I want to get this soundtrack. I want to listen to it, right? Amazing music. Solid performances. A decent enough script. Amazing style. Amazing camera movement. Solid cinematography. My expectations, even as an Argento film, were pretty low for this movie. They hit the wrong button. But I really like this movie, so I'm just going to say this. Dark Glasses. This is a very promising return to what Argento is capable of. And I would give this movie a very enthusiastic 3.5, you digs. And here, we call that 3.69, dudes. Rockin Robbie says, check it the fuck out.